Hello guys, welcome to Open Techno. Today I'm going to introduce you to the speakers I have back here, the Tronsmart Bang 2. This is a brand we've seen multiple times on the channel, and in this case, they've presented us with their latest release. So we can take them to family gatherings, parties, camping trips, the beach, because they're also resistant to water and dust. Let's go! This isn't exactly a small speaker. It's a speaker that's about 38 centimeters long, around 20 centimeters high, and about 15 centimeters deep with a weight of 2.6 kilograms. Like I said, this isn't a speaker you can carry in just any backpack. It's a speaker you'll take for a very specific purpose, to give you powerful sound, but in a place with enough space. For example, if you're packing a suitcase to travel by plane, this wouldn't be the speaker I'd bring. We have another, much smaller range from Tronsmart. Like I said, whoever buys this speaker is mainly looking for sound power and battery life. We'll talk about all of that later, but first let's talk about the design of these speakers, which are made of plastic and fabric. Mostly, you'll be able to find them in both black and blue, like the one I have back there and that you'll see in the images. Mainly for carrying it, we have this handle. However, we also have a shoulder strap so we can hang it on our shoulders if we want to carry it around on the street. Or if, for example, we want to tie it to a tree branch to leave it hanging. And so the music can be heard at about ear level, so you can see them completely. We have both tweeters and mid-range speakers in the central part, which will give us a very clear sound, as well as subwoofers on both sides. These subwoofers are surrounded by a colored ring, which we will be able to configure, as you can see, in 3 tones. The animations it does will also change, like diffusion, color changes, and so on. Or we could even turn them off just by tapping the power button. On the other side, we find the same thing, and also on the back. We're going to find a feature that sets these speakers apart from the competition. And we're going to have a rubber flap where we'll find a slot for micro-secure digital cards, a USB port, which I'll explain what it's for in a moment, an auxiliary port, and a Type-C port to charge the speaker's battery. And now let's move on to talk about the sound, which is ultimately one of the most important parts of a speaker. In each unit of the Bang 2, we're going to find an upgrade, that is, an improvement compared to the first version. From 60 watts of power to 90 watts of power that these devices have here. This will allow us to raise the volume much higher without noticing any distortion in the sound. Also, I should mention that these speakers have equalizations that we can set to our liking, but specifically the best one for me is always Sound Pulse, which you activate from the left button. It's an equalization that slightly boosts the bass and brings out and maximizes the sound that this Tronsmart Bang 2 is capable of delivering. The combination of woofers for the bass and tweeters for the higher sounds gives us an extremely clear sound. You'll see that I've recorded 2 short clips for you, one in which we play a song with some bass and other elements. You'll get a slight sense, since the camera can't capture it, of how good these 2 speakers sound, especially together. We'll discuss that soon, along with a segment from an American YouTuber, in which you'll be able to appreciate a bit more of those nuances in the voice that are heard very, very clearly. And a super cool designer wand, and honestly, if it's better, try it out.
Oh my gosh, this thing has so much grip, it's actually insane. And it feels like most smartphones these days are like 50% computer, 50% camera, and the camera has been a more and more increasingly important part of every smartphone. But what if we just went all the way? What if it was just all camera?
Heaven.
Can't wait, no use watching the sky.
Some are like water, some are like heat, some are a melody, and some are the beat.
Look now where we've come. 24 months and we're not here.
Sound power, these basses, and in the end, the configuration of these speakers make them perfectly suited for open environments. For example, imagine a meadow, a pool where we can, play music with good sound power while still maintaining clarity. But hey, what's one of the main things that always sets Tronsmart speakers apart? Well, in this case, we can connect these 2, for example, in stereo, which is how I have them connected right now. What does this allow us to do? Well, we play music on just one of them, but the two connect to each other and let you play the same song at the same time. What this does, in the end, is let us add up the sound power, the volume, basically, the output from these two speakers. That is, we would have a total power of 180 watts. And how can we set this up? Well, it's a bit tricky here at home, but for example, in my room, I could put one speaker in one corner of the room and another in the opposite corner. That way, if I stand more or less in the middle, I'll hear a stereo sound, more immersive and much fuller than if we just have one speaker. And now let's talk about the battery, because this speaker promises to play music for 26 hours, more than a full day of music playback. And this is also a very big upgrade compared to the initial version. We're going from the 15 hours that the previous model initially had to this Bang 2 allowing us to play music for 26 hours. However, even though the battery is improved, it's not only going to give us longer playback autonomy, but also imagine that we run out of battery on our phone. We'll be able to use this Tronsmart as a power bank to charge our mobile phone. This battery life is not achieved at 100% volume, but rather when we use it at around 50-60%. Other factors also play a role, like whether we have the lights on, for example, if we don't really need them. And finally, let's talk about water and dust protection, because I mentioned that this speaker is made to be taken to the pool, outdoors, where it might suddenly start raining, or if we take it to the beach, it might get some grains of sand inside. Well, it's perfectly prepared for that. This fabric, in case it gets a few drops of water on it, will let the water slide off and won't allow it to get inside. Similarly, the connections are protected by a rubber cap. And although this speaker is not submersible, it's true that it can withstand and has that ingress protection extra 6 protection against water splashes and dust. This way, hey, we can take it outdoors, to the beach, to a pool, without worrying if a few drops of water get on it, and so on. Lastly, I've already mentioned the connections we have on the back, but it's true that I forgot to say that, of course. The main way to connect our device and music to this speaker is through Bluetooth 5.3. This Bluetooth standard lets us play music from up to about 15 meters away, which I think is pretty good. Now, before I tell you the price, let's quickly see what the mobile app offers us, because we have a mobile app from which we can control several things. Let's see what the Tronsmart app would be like in this case. We simply turn on the device, connect it via Bluetooth, and here we find our device. What can we do? Well, it's very easy. Update the firmware, schedule auto power off after 15 minutes 30, or, well, customize it. And then, the most important part for me, which would be the equalizer settings. We can leave it on default, we can set it to sound pulse, which for me is the best, and try some others, or even customize our own equalizer. In my case, as I said, I really like the sound pulse. On the other hand, here we can see which mode we're in. We can see that we're transmitting via Bluetooth. We can also do it through an auxiliary cable, memory card, or a USB. Also, we have the stereo paid-in mode connected with another similar speaker, but we could also activate the broadcast to more than 100 speakers from this little button here. Finally, here we also have the option to set up the 3 color programs available on this speaker, or even turn it off to save battery. And finally, let me tell you that the price of each unit of this speaker is 129 euros. However, if we find a cheaper price, I'll leave it for you. Simply put, to summarize, this speaker has some competitors such as the JBL Extreme 3, for example, but the price of this one, for instance, is quite a bit lower. Or is it much lighter than, for example, the competition like the Stormbox Blast? In short, I think it's a super affordable speaker for what it offers, lightweight, and it gives us good possibilities, both in terms of sound and battery life, perfect to take outdoors. Of course, we can't forget those modes I mentioned to you about connecting both devices in stereo, which isn't unusual, but also the possibility of streaming up to 100 completely different devices as long as they're compatible with these. In short, if you're looking for a very powerful portable speaker with good bass and battery life, without spending a lot of money, I think this Tronsmart Bank 2 is a perfect option. You can leave any questions in the comments below, as always, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.